This story is also at the Politico. Headline, Trump's rock bottom ratings with women. Just how bad are Donald Trump's problems with women? Bad enough that roughly 70% of women voters in recent polls say they have a negative impression of him. And that was before the news coverage of his threat to spill the beans about Heidi Cruz and his talk about punishing women who have abortions. Trump is already so dangerously underwater with women voters that it raises questions about whether a GOP ticket led by the billionaire could lead to an historic gender gap and blowout defeat. That's the opening paragraph in the Politico story about this. And I've got a woman who wants to talk about this. Well, looky here, from Ohio. This is Cindy in Ohio, in Springfield, Ohio. Cindy, I'm glad you waited. It's great to have you, and you're up first today on Open Line Friday. Hi.
Yes, thank you. I've listened to you down through the years, so I'm glad to talk to you. I did want to preface my remarks with saying that I am a black Republican, and also I have been a Trump supporter, so I'm definitely minority of the minority. Having some problems now. He's just seemed like, I feel like he kind of stepped over the edge as far as the campaign manager situation. I felt like he should have reprimanded his campaign manager. Now, the man said
wait, hold it a minute.
Yeah.
Did I misunderstand you? I stepped over the edge? What did I do here?
No, not you. I was talking about
you're using
Donald
the
Trump.
you in a generative generic. Well, right, you're talking about Trump. Yeah, got it.
Yes, I was talking about Donald Trump.
Say, what did I do now?
Reprimanding his campaign manager. Either his campaign manager has Alzheimer's, or he's being dishonest when he says he didn't remember, he didn't know, or whatever. That was his original thought. And then as far as the Heidi Cruz...
Can I wait just a second. The Heidi Cruz in a minute. This is my point, Mr. Snerdley. If this Corey Lewandowski thing had happened back in August, September, maybe even October, people would be marveling at it. They'd be marveling at the way that Trump handles these things. Some would maybe even be laughing at it. But here we are now. We're in March when this happened. And it's an entirely different... There's no openness. There's no consideration. There's no humor. There is no tolerance whatsoever. There's no admiration. In the old... When Trump would double down and support his people, when he would double down on an insult when criticized for it, people would marvel. They would applaud you. Look at this guy. He's showing everybody how it's done. This guy, they hit him and he doubles down on it. They're not talking about Trump that way here. And not just over the Lewandowski thing. So that's why Scott Walker has a point about what the results in Wisconsin could be. Okay, the next thing you want to talk about was Heidi Cruz.
Okay, the Heidi Cruz, I feel like that, I think the families, the wives should be left out of it. Obviously, Melania Trump she was probably proud of her pictures, okay, but the picture as far as Heidi Cruz, to strike out at her, I mean, anyone can find an unflattering picture of anyone, no matter how nice looking they are. So I just feel like just leave the wives out of it. I feel that Donald Trump needs to be more presidential now, be the grown up in the room, so to speak. And then can I ask you about what you think about the Kasich?
Yeah, but I want to ask you a couple of things here about your comments. But go ahead. Yeah, ask me the case again.
I feel like there's something underhanded about the brokered and the contested conventions, because I feel that Governor Kasich, it just seems like he's going to be president, even if it has to be given to him. And I feel like even if they go to the convention, they don't have enough delegates, that the one that has the most, if it's Donald Trump, should get the nomination. So I have a problem with it just being handed to someone. That's overruling the will of the people.
Now, wait a minute. That would be handing it to somebody. If they don't have 1237 and you give it to them anyway, that would be handing it to them.
Well, not if you have the one that has the most. Obviously, you have the will of the people, the majority of the people. This is what the majority of the people want.
Yeah, but the RNC is going to turn around. I know this is what they're plotting. I know this is what they want to do. Whether they're able to pull this off or not remains to be seen. What they want to do is if neither Cruz nor Trump gets 1237, they want to be able to make the case that both have been rejected by voters, since not enough voters thought enough of either one of them to make them a nominee. So they're officially done, And that will free it up for the RNC to then choose the candidate they want at the convention. That's what I
understand that, but don't you feel like it should really go to the majority? What is your opinion on that?
The rule's the rule. You got to get to 1237. If you don't get to 1237, then we start having ballots. I think you've got to cajole, you've got to bend, you've got to shape, you've got to bargain, you've got to do what you can to win this thing. I'm not in favor of the RNC disqualifying Trump or Cruz, but if nobody gets 1237, nobody gets 12. The rule's the rule. The problem is these guys are going to be rewriting these rules. Rule 40 right now, that was written in 2012. By the way, Rule 40 was not written for this convention. And I don't want anybody believing I'm laboring under a misconception. Rule 40 was written back in 2012, and it was designed to protect Romney from people like Ron Paul. Rule 40 was never intended to survive for this convention, but so far it does because the rules have not been rewritten. That'll happen this month. But Rule 40, as it's written, says that no candidate can get the nomination, regardless what happens, if he has not won a minimum majority number of delegates in 8 states in the primaries. Well, that's bye-bye Kasich. Kasich is not even close. It's sayonara Kasich. But that rule isn't going to stand. They're going to rewrite that rule. If they have to rewrite that rule to say that all you have to do is to have won one state, that legalizes Kasich. They can do whatever they want. They write the rules. They're not going to change the 1237, though. They're going to use that as a disqualifier. Now, the party can do any number of things here. I mean, they can take your advice and go for the unity and say, look, if we've got a guy, 1237 was our number, and we get somebody that closest to it is 1100, 127 short or whatever it is. But how do you, they'll have to change the rules saying that by acclamation vote, whatever, but it's not that easy because these delegates, this is a real, do you know Trump is facing a potential disaster right now? South Carolina's delegates, in order to have those delegates pledged to you, there's a rule in South Carolina that you have to pledge to support the eventual Republican nominee. Well, Trump answered a question recently that he might have changed his mind about supporting the nominee based on the fact that people are not treating him fairly or what have you. Well, now he is at risk of having violated one of the rules of the South Carolina primary. He now faces, if he actually doesn't revise this, if South Carolina wanted to, they could deny Trump the delegates that he won there. Now, all hell would break out if that happened, but it's a possibility. And people are saying, did Trump even know? This is what they're asking now. Does Trump even have a staff that knows the rules about how all this stuff works? He just hired a guy and asked the RNC in that little meeting they had yesterday. He actually asked Reince Priebus, is my guy any good? That's a news report I read. He asked the RNC, is this guy I've hired any good at this delegate stuff? I'm making up the words. But the point is, when you get down to delegates and how they're apportioned and how they're chosen, before I have to go to break, let me present one possibility. First ballot, candidate needs 1237. The rule is that whoever wins the state in the primary automatically gets all those delegates. But, folks, it could be in a state with 49 delegates that 40 of them hate Trump, that have to vote for him on the first ballot, that the party has chosen them specifically for a second and third ballot vote to vote against Trump. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. And we're not going to know till it starts to play out who's doing what with what. Yes, folks, I got it. Women in Ohio are complaining about the unfairness of having to pay $4 a year in taxes on tampons. That's right. And other women years ago complained about having to pay $12 a month for contraception. A lot of women complaining about a lot of expenses out there on the left. And on the basis that it's unfair because men do not have to. Men pay. Men pay in so many ways for all of this stuff. I can't even begin to tabulate a financial value or cost